step to this? Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this? Face the pain. Face the pain, no escape. Can you step to this?
What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Fixed Fights podcast with Kurt and Ben. As always, I'm Kurt. I'm here with my main man, Ben. What's going on this week, dude?
Not a lot, just chilling. Another week in paradise, basically.
Yeah, right. I know. I hear you, man. So I want to switch up gears a little bit this week. We'll get to all like the live UFC that happened this past weekend. We'll talk about this coming weekend's card, but there's a lot of other like shit going on in the MMA world. A lot of stuff on Twitter and social media. So let's get to that first. The big one I want to talk about first is Conor McGregor. What the fuck is going on with him? So last week, Conor McGregor, we saw all the things with Dana White and him leaking the Instagram DMs where he was wanting to fight Diego Sanchez and whatever. The thing I take out of that is not so much him wanting to fight Diego Sanchez. I guess I'm taking out him wanting to be active, right? He's talking about Manny Pacquiao. And then it comes about that he and Dustin Poirier have agreed to this charity fight in Ireland, and I like the sound of that, right? But then again, it's like, I don't know, why not maybe just fight in the octagon, right? And now it seems as though Dana White has actually offered that fight. What do you make of the whole situation? The charity fight, Dana offering the fight. What do you make of this whole situation?
I mean, I have no idea what kind of purse they were offering Conor McGregor, but reading in between the lines, right? I think this charity sparring match, right, is just a negotiation ploy on the part of McGregor in an attempt to get, it's total posturing. Like, let's not hold out for a single second that they're gonna put on some exhibition sparring match for charity. And if they do, it would be like inside a gym. It's not going to be like a big event if they do that. But 100% reading in between the lines, I think this is McGregor posturing for more money. It sounds like Poirier accepted a McGregor fight, but McGregor obviously has not accepted. But and I also read that in response to this news that the UFC had offered McGregor Poirier fights, and I believe he was actually offered the fight twice, and I think Poirier accepted twice, if I'm reading this correctly. But I think McGregor's camp came back with the response that like we're still committed to boxing Manny Pacquiao, which is surprising, man. I mean, I know I said last week like sign me up for the circus of McGregor Pacquiao, but that was without a Dustin Poirier fight on the table. If a Dustin Poirier fight's on the table,
that
give me that
everything.
10 times out of 10. I want that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm still like, if you said on a scale from 1 to 10, how confident are you that McGregor is going to fight this year? I'd say maybe 4. And maybe even like a 3 that his opponent would be Poirier. Like, even though this fight is being talked about like it's going to happen, I just have very little hope of anything coming together.
Yeah, I don't know where to think of it. And listen, I'm all for like charity fights, right? And doing things for charity. I love the idea, but hey man, Conor makes enough money. Dustin always does things for charity. Why not just do this UFC fight and give some of your money to charity, right? Like donate a portion of your purse to charity. It makes too much sense. I mean, you want the Khabib fight, right? Dustin Poirier is going to get you that Khabib fight. If you can go out there and beat this Dustin Poirier again, you deserve the Khabib fight, right? I mean, Dustin Poirier is right there. He's beaten everybody. He's beaten Justin Gaethje, who's the next guy up for the title. I mean, dude, if you want the Khabib fight and you want to make Khabib want to fight you, this is the fight to make. I think you already answered my next question, which was, do you see this fight happening, or do you see this fight happening in 2020? I don't know, man. I never know what to think with Conor. He's such a wild man.
Do you think this is like, obviously he has not accepted the first offer, but I get the sense too that McGregor sees this, if he's going to fight one of the top guys at lightweight, I kind of feel like he might feel like he has the best chance against Poirier compared to a guy like Gaethje. I guess above him, there's not a ton of other guys in the rankings. I think even Tony Ferguson would give McGregor problems in a way he doesn't like.
I think all these guys would, man. I think a lot of these guys at lightweight are, dude, and we always talk about how good this division is. I mean, Poirier, Gaethje, Khabib, Michael Chandler, Tony Ferguson, Charles Oliveira. I think all these
Yeah.
guys at the top of that division pose certain problems for different guys. They're all right at the top of the food chain. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but man, I want
It's
to see it happen. This is, dude, it's the fight to make. I mean, if they're offering you the fight, you said you wanted the season, Connor talks, all this stuff, man. Just take the fight. If you want to fight, take the fight. It's here.
I wish, but like this is part of the deal with McGregor is like part of having a star of his level in MMA is like we're gonna deal with like around the clock. If he even tweets at somebody, we're gonna know about it. And like this is part of it is like the months long negotiation process. I feel like I mean the Cowboy fight came out of nowhere, but that also didn't do huge numbers at all by Conor McGregor standards. Like if they could build a fight, I mean, if they started building a Poirier McGregor rematch now for a fight that takes place in like December, that sounds about right.
Well, here's the thing too, and I've been saying this for a while. I think MMA fans in general are kind of tired of the bullshit, right? Like MMA moves on, right? Israel Adesanya just did pretty solid numbers. Masvidal and Usman pulled in 1.3 million buys. You have John Jones. You have all these fighters that have made a name for themselves. So again, like I think the UFC has many other options where it's not solely Conor McGregor, and B, I think fans are starting to, or have been starting to stale to his antics, right? I mean, you can only take so much like shit talking and posturing and I don't know, whatever McGregor does before it's like, you know what, dude, like we got to
Well,
move on, right? It's not only about you.
dude, if he's doing shit talking and posturing at a press conference, that's gonna get him more fans. But if his shit
Right.
talking and posturing happens on Twitter the night of every pay per view, then it's like becomes kind of grating, right? Like
Yeah.
we want to see him do that like obnoxious shit in person. We want to see him like building a fight. And I felt like the Cowboy fight was undersold, but if he fights just a couple times a year, obviously that would be huge. I think that's a big ask for
It's a
somebody
big
like him.
ask at this point.
But if he fights, sometime, like I said, if they start beefing or building up a Poirier fight now, like put that in December or January, and that's a big card with some actual steam behind it.
Well, guess what? You bring up a good point. Uh UFC 256. No, you're good, man. Dog's just going nuts over there. My dog does too. I don't even know where he is right now. But you say December. Guess what fight just fell through? Kamaru Usman versus Gilbert Burns has officially been taken off the UFC 256 card, which I believe was December 12th. It's been pushed back to January or February. That card needs a main event. What better would it be to put Dustin Poirier, Conor McGregor in December as that main event? I mean, right? That would be huge.
It makes perfect sense. I mean, again, I feel like we talk about it every week that like sometimes things just make perfect sense and it makes sense for us. But I mean, yeah, they need some stars there. And also like Cody Garbrandt, I believe it was UFC 256.
I think
Garbrandt was gonna be
255.
one of those. Yeah, 255, sorry. Uh he pulled out too. And I doubt they're going to put the replacement Alex Perez, which is a great fight. I'm sure we'll talk about that. But they're like Cody Garbrandt was the whole reason of that being a pay per
Right.
view. I feel like so there are going to be some options, and the UFC needs to fill out some big fights if they're going to have anything kind of respectable on these pay per views.
I mean, the only other thing I could think of it is, slotting into that is maybe Masvidal versus Covington.
Anybody, Masvidal, Diaz too, which we're not super high on, but Masvidal Covington would
Masvidal
be huge.
McGregor.
That would also be
You know
huge if
what?
Connor wants to fight. There's options.
There is options, man. They're gonna have to do something big because that's one of their pay per views. They got to slot somebody in, right?
I think they could also do this would be a long shot too, but I think they could if they want to do like Stipe and Ngannou or if John
Yeah,
Jones
I've
is
I've
ready
heard
for
that.
heavyweight. But like Stipe and Ngannou would be one that I think would do pretty big numbers at this point too.
I think Connor versus Dustin makes the most sense. It's been offered. You now have a slot.
Yeah.
Connor's one of those guys that you don't need to put any title on the line to put him in the main event. He's proven that before. Dude, it just makes too much sense, man. I'm hoping we get that. I'm pretty doubtful, but one can only hope, right?
I just don't I mean, I feel like all respect to Dustin Poirier, I feel like he's not the best like foil. This is me, like obviously the fight's awesome. Sign me up for that. That's great. But if I'm just nitpicking about potential opponents, I feel like it's like hard. Poirier's too nice and too like earnest for McGregor to like have quality shit talk on him. I feel like he's gonna insult the guy who like is just beloved by all,
Well,
or let's say McGregor just does a complete heel turn and just everybody starts hating him because he shits on Dustin Poirier. That sign me up for that.
I mean, there's some backstory there. He beat Dustin, right? To be honest with you, they had some shit talking and some beef going into that first fight, right?
Yep.
And Dustin has gotten exponentially better since then. He's fought for a world title. He's held an interim title. So I don't know. I think they can. And again, like even if McGregor's fighting a Rock, you're gonna get into it, right? Like he makes something out of nothing a lot of times with shit talking. He's always been so good on the mic. I don't know, man. I think it makes a ton of sense, and they're gonna have to do something big, right? Because they got a date. They have a pay per view coming up. I don't know. I don't even know what the co-main for that 256 card was, but I don't believe it was a title fight.
I don't know. But I mean, they don't have a ton of other options. Like if you think about the UFC's bigger stars and bigger or like champions, like Adesanya just fought, even though he didn't take a freaking, even though he didn't get touched, I don't think he wants to come back quite so early. Stipe is being difficult. Um, I guess, Jan Blachowicz is not going to be selling any pay-per-views anytime soon, probably. Like they don't have a ton of other options. I mean, I guess maybe Amanda Nunes, and I'm sure we'll talk about her
No, well,
options.
she's already
She's You're
scheduled
right.
against
You're right. Megan Anderson.
yeah.
That might be the co-main on 256.
Yeah. But you're going from one of the bigger title
Right.
fights
It's not.
to, as great as Amanda Nunes is, there's not a lot of
No,
pop to her fights because she usually just dominates everybody. Megan Anderson is
especially
not a
this one.
well-known name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
She I think the UFC would and could put in Amanda Nunes there. It's just obviously, like you said, is going to be do nowhere near the numbers that Usman Burns was going to do.
I think they are going to offer this fight for 256. I really do.
Mm-hmm.
Whether McGregor takes it or not, that's another story, but I do think it's going to be offered. So here's to hoping, right?
Yeah, here's to hoping. I'm down with it.
All right, let's talk about another social media feud that is ongoing. John Jones and Israel Adesanya have nonstop been going at each other since UFC 253, right? I mean, they're bringing in family talk, they're talking shit about each other, and it spurred even Dana White to say now is a time for that fight. What's your opinion? Do you think now is the time for John Jones versus Israel Adesanya?
Hell no. I don't think so. I mean, what was it, just like 2 weeks ago that I was like, one thing I like about Israel Adesanya is that he's just fighting the next man
I
up.
think we both said that. Yeah, yeah.
And man, I think this is all just their posturing. And I do think to a degree, both these guys, especially Israel Adesanya, I honest to God get the sense that Adesanya is doing it not because he thinks he's going to fight John Jones anytime soon, but he's like, in 3 years, I'm gonna be on this fucking mega fight with John Jones. I think Adesanya might be playing the long game. I think John Jones is just kind of dicking around on social media. I don't think it's gonna happen anytime. Like within the next year, I would be shocked if it comes to fruition.
Yeah, I would say maybe 2021, but I don't even think so. I think,
He's
you
talking
know,
about going to heavyweight.
yeah, well,
Like,
that's the thing. We've been so pumped about John Jones going to heavyweight, and now we want him to go down and fight Israel Adesanya at two. No, like let John go to heavyweight. I want to see John compete at heavyweight, and then maybe down the line, if John maybe I don't know collects the heavyweight title, you can sell it as a, or I don't know, maybe even like maybe you could do this as a one-off. No belt on the line, just John Jones versus Israel. Yeah, but I don't need to see it right now. I'd rather see
yeah,
John go up to heavyweight, chase that title. Adesanya, he's gonna have Cannonier if Cannonier gets by Whitaker. Darren Till is in the mix. There's guys in the mix. I'd rather see that happen, but these guys are definitely going hard at each other.
yeah. On that, because we typically we appreciate John Jones's Twitter game
Always.
usually because he's usually pretty good. I'm gonna be honest, man. I think Izzy's getting the better of him on Twitter. I think Izzy is just a little bit more tuned into internet culture, and is getting the better at John Jones. Which, as a longtime fan of John Jones, just burning people on Twitter, it makes me a little sad to see.
And you know what's funny is Israel Adesanya is only what, like a year younger than John
He's like
Jones,
2 years younger.
and
Just
he
but
just seems
he
so much
seems
more like young and into that. I don't
dude.
know that whole like wavelength.
John Jones is starting to feel like Cormier. Like he's got like wrestling
Yeah,
coach
yeah,
vibes
yeah,
a
yeah.
little bit. Like, I need to see, like, anytime John Jones is playing nice, which is basically what he was doing on Twitter, was like, "You're being disrespectful, Israel." Like, this shit. It's better when Jones does like one hint of being nice and respectful, and then just unleashes after that, just like vitriol. Like
I'm
that's the
telling
John
you,
Jones I
man.
need to
The
see. Yeah,
cocky villain, bad boy
so
John
good.
Jones is
The
the best
best.
John Jones. Like when he went through that phase where because remember when he first came out, he was like goody two shoes, and you could almost see right through it that it was like a play and it was fake. And then he went through that phase where he was like villain. He was blowing lines off strippers' asses. Daniel Cormier a week after that, like that was the best John Jones.
For sure. The kind of John Jones where I would be afraid to like spend a night with, like, an evening
Yeah,
out with him, because it's like something's gonna, like, are there cops gonna be around? Like, that's the John Jones that the world needs right now. But honestly, man, I think Izzy is like up for that little feud as long as it's happening on the internet. The actual fight, man, I don't think is going to happen. That just doesn't make any sense for either guy right
it
now.
doesn't. I mean, I'm not going to be mad if it does happen, but yeah, I don't think it really makes any sense right now. I want to see John Jones fight at heavyweight. I want to see Izzy clear out that division. Maybe late 2021, if the dust settles and it's still there, sure, make it, but it doesn't have to be made right now.
For sure. For sure.
All right. So Bellator had a pretty big week. They debuted on CBS Sports. I don't know if you caught any of those fights. They had Bellator, I believe, 247 and Bellator Milan. I think the two big headlines coming out of that one was Paul Daly misses weight, gets pulled from the main event, and then goes on, I believe, Instagram and says his next fight will be his last. It'll be at 175 pounds. Um, yeah, tough break for Daly and a tough break for Bellator. Denise Keelhost slides into the main event and ends up getting a pretty impressive win, but she's not Paul Daly. Um, yeah, tough break for Daly, tough break for Bellator.
I mean, yeah, she's not Paul Daly, which, by the way, that knockout, pretty sweet.
Yeah,
People,
very
if
nice.
if people didn't see it, I mean, I'm sure it's still all over Instagram. It was a really quick knockout and a really cool one. But yeah, like, it sucks that Paul Daly, they lost their main event, but it's not like they were like pulling out all the stops for this event anyway. Outside of Paul Daly, like,
I
were
think
they?
I
You know
think
what
the
I mean?
big kickoff is going to be that Cyborg card. Cyborg's very well known. It's a big fight. I think she's really going to be like their flagship. Like, hey, this is the event. This is the fight. Boom, we're on CBS Sports.
Yeah, that makes perfect
You
sense.
know what I'm
That makes
saying?
perfect
But
sense. So it wasn't, and from, I only watched in and out of this event, but like, this means we now don't have tape delay Bellator, which is what
which is
was
nice. It's
going on
nice.
with Paramount. Yeah, like, if you want some Saturday or Thursday afternoon Bellator, like, you can have it now. You don't have to have the tape delay.
Yeah, and know the results, prior
Right.
to. So
Right.
yeah, I like that. I guess the other big news from Bellator is James Gallagher. Well, at least fighting wise, James Gallagher gets a big win. Uh, you know, my question is James Gallagher going to be the next MVP, or is he going to be the guy? Because he called for a title shot, right? He said he wants the title, and we've said that division is pretty damn stacked. Juan Archuleta is now the champion. Looked
Mhm.
great in his last fight. You got some other guys, a couple signees, which we're going to talk about in a second. But is he going to be MVP, where he's fighting bum after bum after bum after bum, or is he going to actually go for the title? Because he's young, he has an exciting fighting style, and he's got the gift of gab. He's good on the mic. What do you think is the potential for James Gallagher at this point?
I think they're gonna put him in title fights for sure. I mean, he fought that loss that he has to Ricky Bandejas. Like, he was matched against a guy. I feel like Ricky Bandejas. Let me see here. Yeah, so like, when he fought Bandejas, Gallagher was 7-0 and Bandejas was 10-1. So
Right.
he's obviously not afraid of steps up in competition. And like we said, man, Bellator's bantamweight division is like coming together kind of nicely.
It is. It is. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see him step up and fight into that title mix. I don't want to see another MVP where it's like 20 Bellator fights and we're still wondering if this guy is a top fighter or if he's a can crusher, right?
Yeah.
Uh, and like James Gallagher definitely has the gift of gab. He's got a big mouth. He's flashy. He kind of reminds you of a little Conor McGregor in a sense.
Yes, like,
With a
heavily.
different skill set because he's really slick on the ground. Uh, yeah, man, I'm down to see it. That division's booming. I want to see him take a step up. if it's not a title shot next, I think he deserves one of these top contenders.
Yeah, sign me up. There's options there for Bellator. Um, they keep Sergio Pettis, Juan Archuleta, Patchy Mix, all those guys. I'm down with it.
Hey, talking about new signees, they just signed Brett Johns too.
Yes.
7-2, I believe. 17-2. I believe he was on a 2-fight win streak when he tested free agency in the UFC. He's fought some studs, Aljamain Sterling, the likes of that. So he's another big signing for Bellator. They also signed Khabib's cousin, Usman Nurmagomedov, who is an absolute beast. If you haven't seen him, he is not a carbon copy of Khabib. The guy's got some super, super slick striking, undefeated. And then they also signed Rustam Habilov, who is a longtime vet in UFC, has some big names on his ledger, signed him to the 155-pound division. I believe Nurmagomedov is going to be fighting at 145.
Man, all those names you just mentioned, and from what I've seen, Bellator is now snatching up like high level regional talent, which was
Yeah.
not something they really did previously. Obviously, guys here and there like Aaron Pico, like a mega star, things like that, but they weren't like snatching up like regional level champions, which from what I'm seeing, they're doing more and more of now.
Yeah.
And like drawing from LFA, which has traditionally been basically only
UFC's feeder. Yeah.
yeah, like UFC light. They're getting LFA guys, so um, I think Bellator now is like trying to actually like build its own roster to where they can put on a like legit 10 fight cards with Bellator only fighters.
I mean, now is the time to strike, right? They just struck the CBS
Exactly.
Sports deal. CBS Sports is much, it's going to have more eyes on it than Paramount Network, right?
Yeah.
You
And
know,
dude, I bet they are like I've been to not a bunch, a fair amount of live Bellator shows. They're good, but they
do a
never
great
sell
job.
out. They don't sell out, right? They're not
Yeah.
making a ton of money from tickets. So they actually might be doing pretty good money during the pandemic because they have basically no production costs. They're just putting on a show in the freaking casino or I guess now in Milan, but without crowds, smaller production costs, and they like you said, they just have this CBS Sports deal. So they might be flush with cash right now, just trying to snatch up as much fighters as they can.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
I mean, big things coming for Bellator, man. I'm
for sure.
happy to see it. I think, the UFC needs that foil, right? It's not interesting when it's so monopolized by the UFC. Uh, I think it's great. And real quick, let's touch on one of UFC's, I guess, main competitors, right? PFL looks like it is going to be sued by some of their fighters. Lance Palmer, I believe Kayla Harrison is going to be represented by the same lawyer. Basically, they're going to be sued for the lack of the season this year, and I think the fighters were given like a set amount of pay, which is not the same as fighting.
They
A lot
were
of those fighters are not happy.
Yeah, the stipend I think only applied to like 70% of the roster and it was like $1,000 a month or something. So you got a guy like Lance Palmer who's used to making a million plus a
Right,
year
right.
doesn't have that opportunity. So yeah, they're upset and like when PFL canceled everything in March or whatever, it kind of looked, oh, they're ahead of the curve, but now in retrospect, it's like you
They're
don't have
not.
to do the full season thing, which is what they
No,
do. Just
no,
do
like
shows. Just
do
do
some
shows.
fight card. Yeah,
They got
right.
good fighters. They got people that want to fight. Obviously, give me
They
Ray
do.
Cooper fighting a couple times, and I'm happy. Like, yeah, I don't know anything about the legalities of like what exactly if they have a case or not, but they have a bunch of unhappy fighters for sure.
Do you think PFL recovers from this, or do you think PFL is doomed?
I don't think they're doomed because they got like I mean they were on ESPN and everything,
Yeah,
and
that's true.
they
That's
have
true.
that backing. I mean, if they actually do like lose a lot of money from a lawsuit, that might be an issue. But I kind of assume they're just doing nothing. Like they're not. They're just at zero right now,
Yeah,
essentially.
yeah.
So I don't know, but they do have big backers, but it's just a really rough look, and especially if they lose guys over this, like if Lance Palmer goes elsewhere, and I think maybe he did,
I think he's
or
going to.
he asked for his release at
Yeah,
least.
yeah. I think he's going to. He's not happy with them. He's filing a lawsuit. I think they're going to cut ties with him. But
Yeah.
you got to wonder what's going to happen with Kayla Harrison because I think she was one of their most marketable
Yep.
fighters. And if she's not happy and looking to dip, Scott Coker's definitely going to be calling her up because
Ooh,
you know,
yes.
picture this a year down the road: Kayla Harrison versus Chris Cyborg. It's a big women's fight.
I would watch
You
it.
know,
Yep, 100%.
um, so we'll see. All right, let's jump into the UFC action that happened this past weekend, and we'll talk about this coming weekend's card. Holly Holm gets a big win over Irene Aldana, absolutely dominating. Man, looked like vintage Holly. Um, Man, she was crisp in there. Eh, her cardio looked great. She was just like setting a trap for Aldana time after time after time, and dude, I was frustrated for Aldana, right? Because she was constantly chasing home, and every time she got close, she was either, taking a side kick or a teep right to the sternum or the gut. Holm was hitting her with crisp combinations. She just could not get anything going. I mean, that was a complete whitewash domination for Holly Holm.
Yeah, I mean, we were kind of critical of Holly Holm's fighting style last week, and for good reason, by the way. And I think we called this fight pretty accurately. We thought Holly would be able to keep the distance, and she did. But she is, and I'm still critical of her fighting style, but she is one of those people that if she's allowed to do what she does well, there's like nothing you can do.
It's
And
hard to stop her.
what she does well is like fight on the out, like move back, draw you forward, and she's either gonna throw that like straight left hand, lead uppercut, straight left hand combo, or just a straight left hand. And then anytime you start to kind of invade her distance when she's not ready to counter, she just lets off a side kick or one of those oblique kicks or anything to keep you backing off. And Aldana just had no answer for it.
No
And the few
answers.
if Aldana does close the distance, then Holm had that like body lock takedown that
Yeah,
she
she
hit
used her wrestling great.
over. I was gonna ask you, like, at this point in her career, like, how do you rate Holly Holm's wrestling overall? Like, is she just kind of muscling shit, or is she actually like good
No,
at
I
what she's
think
doing?
I think her takedowns look great. She was timing them well. Her technique looked good, and Aldana has not been an easy person to take down
Right.
in her UFC career. So I think all props to Holly. I think she picked her spots really well, and she wasn't really hanging out, too long in the clinch. Right? She had a plan for her takedown. She was securing them. She passed the guard a couple times. I believe she got to mount. Um, yeah, I mean, I forget if it was the second or third round, but she mounted Aldana and was like just dropping bombs on her. I thought
Mhm.
there's a possibility it can get stopped. Dude, just honestly, just a really, really smart veteran fight from Holly Holm.
And I also think her credit or some credit deserves to go to her cardio because like watching,
Dude, it
she
was
was,
great.
Aldana was moving forward basically the entire time, and Holm was pretty actively moving away from her almost the entire time, I guess, unless she was on top, on the mat. But I really thought her cardio. I was like, "There's no way she can fight at this kind of like movement oriented fight for so long." And she didn't slow down. I
Didn't
mean,
slow
she
down.
was laying it on at the very very end of the fight,
I
like
thought she was
totally
going to
laying it
stop
on.
us in the fifth
She
round.
was
She hurt.
trying.
She hurt Aldana bad a couple times.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'd like to see. It'd be interesting to see like how much distance she covered in that fight,
yeah.
right? Because I mean, she was on her bike, just circling, 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 literally the whole fight. And yeah, the fifth round, she sat down on a couple punches. She hit Aldana with like that head kick as Aldana was coming up, and it really rocked her. She busted her face up. And yeah, just impressive stuff from Holm. And Aldana was no pushover. Uh, I think it brings up like what do you do with Holly Holm now, right? I mean, she was knocked out by Amanda Nunes, but all signs point to her being able to do this to pretty much any challenger, right? Like it would have made all the sense in the world if Aldana won this to give Aldana the next title shot, but she didn't. She got absolutely dominated. Now we have Holly Holm again. I think the one thing we could point to is Jermaine Durandamy gets a
Mhm.
big win in what my opinion should have been the co-main event. I don't that Jorgen De Castro Carlos Felipe fight was decent, but it was a weird co-main event call.
Dude, Jermaine Durandamy is pretty fucking exciting, right? Am I
Yeah, she
crazy
is.
here?
No,
Like,
she's not.
you can
She's
tell she
very
like
exciting.
obviously this fight worked out well for her, but even like I guess the Nunes fight didn't go well for her. She was not super exciting in that fight, but on the feet, you get the sense that this woman is ready to like murder somebody. Like she absolutely hits hard on the feet. So yeah, I don't
She
know why
caused
this
Amanda
fight.
Nunes to wrestle fuck her.
Yeah, that's a good
You
point.
know what I'm saying? She caused
Yeah,
Amanda Nunes to wrestle fuck her. And
yeah,
to this day, I still think her and Chris Cyborg would have been an absolute banger of a fight. 'Cause Cyborg is not too afraid to stand with anyone. And I think Durandamy has the striking to give Cyborg problems.
yeah.
She was super patient in this fight. She did great work on the feet. And yeah, dude, she gets a really nice guillotine I think the ref was a little bit slow on that call. I mean, Pena was out for like literally like 5-10 seconds before he got in there and made the call. Let me ask you this: is it time for Durandamy versus Holly Holm 2 at 135 title eliminator?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you especially because you got Nunes are occupied at least for a moment with Megan Anderson, so there's some time for that. They could, I guess, sell. That first fight had the Durandamy like I think twice hitting Holly Holm after the bell.
Yeah, it did.
So
It wasn't
if
the
they want
best
to build
fight,
that up,
but
but also like nobody fucking remembers that fight. Like
no,
it's fine. Like they can. There's no reason why that should stop them from having a rematch. So yeah, I mean, sign me up for Durandamy Holm. Like they both won on the same card. It makes sense rankings wise. Like I don't entirely see why we wouldn't want to see this, other than the fact that yeah, the first fight was not super exciting. So you run the risk of that happening, but you run the risk of that happening. All respect to Holly Holm in any Holly Holm fight, that it's
right.
going to be a stinker. So that's just the way it goes.
This fight was not though, and
Yeah.
I don't know. I would hope that the second fight would be better, and I think it would. And yeah, it makes a ton of sense, man. Durandamy's kind of in the same boat as Holly Holm. Like, yes, he lost to Amanda Nunes, but any of these up and coming fighters that you want to put in there with these two ladies,
Yeah. We saw what happened to Aspen Ladd.
Aspen Ladd, yes, Juliana Pena, Irina Aldana, like they are extremely good. Yeah, maybe Aspen Ladd would be the other possible foil for Holly Holm, but then that leaves who you're gonna put Jermaine Durandamy in with.
Yeah. I think Durandamy Holm and put it on the main event of a fight night card.
Yeah,
I think that sells itself.
yeah, I'm with that, man. Um, yeah, let's jump down to the prelims for a second. Carlos Condit, man, talk about a heartwarming, feel good moment. Carlos Condit gets his first win in 5 years over Court McGee, and he looked kind of like vintage Carlos Condit, man. He looked really good on the feet. He was mixing up well. He was kind of flashing a lot of his game. He hurt Court McGee really bad at the end of the first round. And yeah, by the way, dude, props to Court McGee. That guy's tough as fuck. Even Carlos Condit said Court McGee fixed his broken nose mid-fight. Yeah, insane.
Dude, well, I mean, first of all, yes, all due respect to Carlos Condit, looked pretty good in this fight, but I think they said it on the broadcast that McGee has had like 6 non-narcotic surgeries or something
Yeah, it's crazy.
because he's a recovering drug addict and I
Yeah,
think was pronounced dead, right? He has this crazy story. So
crazy story.
and he's had these like because of that, he's had these non-narcotic surgeries. So if that guy's going under the knife without anesthesia, like a broken nose, he's fucking fine.
Yeah,
Like
he's fine.
he's fine. But yeah, Condit, I liked what I saw. Like he was doing his like mixing up long combinations, going to the body well, stayed out of trouble on the mat. I think did McGee even get him down once in the first round?
No, I don't think so. I don't
So
even think McGee
he couldn't
tried
get
any
close.
takedowns.
Yeah.
I don't think he can even get close.
It was good to see Condit win though, for sure.
So it seems like Condit wants to start fighting or keep fighting. Um, any ideas for who you want to see next? I mean, the one that I'll throw out there is Matt Brown. That fight's been canceled 2 times. Matt Brown kind of alluded to it after the fight. Why not, man? Why not?
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I Matt Brown, I think wants to fight, right? He's been injured for a minute,
He
and
wants to fight, yeah.
yeah, sign me up. I mean, anybody like that, Matt Brown, Anthony Pettis, even like anybody that's kind of at that similar stage of their career.
2021 Nick Diaz rematch. I mean, you never
It
know.
was people forget how big that fight was when it happened, and that was or it might have been an
It
interim
was an
title.
interim title fight, and it produced one of the best quotes ever. Oh, we're throwing spin and shit now. Like that was great.
Yeah,
He was slapping him. Like a lot of people thought Nick Diaz won that fight.
it was
Uh,
it was a big fight and a big disappointment because of at the time like nobody could imagine Carlos Condit not just moving forward
I
and
know,
like scrapping
I know.
immediately, and he like mixed up his game plan. It was a big deal when that happened.
But
So yeah, I
okay,
mean that fight makes sense.
but here's the thing, and this is Carlos Condit is in that position of fighter that we always talk about, right? Like he's the aging veteran. He finally got a win. Like let's not put him in there with some fucking rising stud. You know what I'm saying? Like keep him with the Nick Diaz's, the Matt Browns, the Court McGee's of the world. Like
Yeah,
I feel like you get these heartwarming stories, and it's like next week they're like, all right,
fight
Vicente
Vincente
Luque
Luque.
versus
Yes.
Carlos Condit, and it's like, no, what the
Yeah,
fuck are we doing? Like, stop.
I mean
Put him in with
Condit
Matt Brown.
Before this fight, wasn't his last fight getting submitted by Michael Chiesa, which I feel like
Yep,
was like
yep.
that's like best case scenario. He's not getting knocked out; he's getting submitted.
Yeah, but still that's nothing for him. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly,
It's another
exactly,
loss. Yeah, so I like the Matt Brown call. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Shit,
for
man,
sure.
maybe even a Robbie Lawler rematch at this point.
That's 100%
You know what?
a
Although
possibility.
the fight that I want to see, and again, like I have no sort of confidence that Nick Diaz is ever going to step foot in a cage again. But if he does, I want to see Robbie Lawler and Nick Diaz too. I think at this
Yeah,
point, you have no idea what Nick is. Robbie is definitely not a Robbie of a couple years ago. That fight happened in what, like
4 or
2004,
something like
2005,
way,
something crazy.
yeah, a long time ago. I
That's the
mean,
fight I want to see.
Nick's been looking in shape and
Yeah,
less
he does
drunk
look in
on
shape.
social
Yeah,
media, so
he looks good, man.
there's
We'll
there's
see.
if you want to be hopeful, you can be.
Yeah, I think any of those fights for Carlos would be good. Anything else you want to talk about on this card?
No, man, that was it. I mean, there was a lot of I feel like talent, but obviously this is just the UFC. They have to fill cards, man. No disrespect to anybody on here. These were a lot of good fights, but they got to fill cards.
Yeah, there was a couple fun fights on the undercard. Casey Kenny got a big win. Loma Luke Bunmei, she's always fun to watch. Got a big win. So we'll see. All right,
For sure.
moving on to this weekend's card. Kind of flying under the radar, but dude, this main event is an absolute banger. Uh, Marlon Moraes taking on Cory Sandhagen. Cory Sandhagen is coming off that loss to Aljamain Sterling, but I still think he's right there. And Marlon Moraes has long been one of the best guys in this division. Moraes is on he beat Aldo in his last fight. Prior to that, he had lost to Henry Cejudo. Do you have the odds up for this fight?
I believe Well, I'm not gonna just
Yeah, I was gonna
make
say
it up.
I
I
can
believe Sandhagen is Sandhagen minus 135.
That
Moraes
surprises
plus
me. I
115.
figured Moraes would be the favorite here.
I mean, he certainly has the experience edge, right? And overall the big fight edge for
Big fight
sure.
edge.
And
And I
especially,
think
I think it's people don't. Yes, Sandhagen just got totally washed in his last fight, but obviously nobody expects Moraes to be able to do anything like that to him, right? The way he lost
the way
doesn't look
he lost, but I think this is a really tough fight for Sandhagen, right? Sandhagen's got great movement. He's got great striking. He actually mixes in his takedowns and jiu-jitsu pretty well, but Moraes is not an easy guy to take down. His balance is insane. And he can really, really wear on you with those leg kicks, body kicks. I think Sandhagen's in for a lot of trouble here right now, man. And if I was a betting man, which I am, and I was going to give you some betting advice, if you get Marlon Moraes as an underdog here, I'm on that train, man. I think it's all Marlon Moraes in this fight.
Man, so two things. One, I actually agree with you that I expected Moraes to be like the betting favorite. I expected the public to like him more just because, like I said, even though Sandhagen lost like in a quote unquote good way in his last fight, he still got just totally washed by Aljamain Sterling right away. Moraes has the experience, but that said, man, I see the fight different. I think Sandhagen um, is going to, assuming he stays out of trouble early, which is when Moraes is obviously like super, super
Yeah,
dangerous with his
true.
kicks. I honestly think Sandhagen is just gonna have a bigger frame. Oh, I know he has a bigger frame, but I think he's gonna be able to use that bigger frame to pressure Moraes, which has kind of been the book. I don't want to say the book has been written on Marlon Moraes because he is like offensively maybe one of the most dangerous fighters we've ever seen at
Yeah,
135.
I
Like his
agree.
kicking game. But if guys can kind of consistently put him on his back foot, take away that kicking game, he's run into problems. Obviously against Cejudo, um, a little bit against Aldo in their
Yeah.
fight. I think Sandhagen is gonna be able to do that for the most part. I will say Sandhagen seems pretty confident in his kicking game, and if he tries to kick, unless he's like using just like super long kicks and staying out of Moraes' range, like I said, hopefully Sandhagen builds a strategy around using his frame. But if Sandhagen thinks no, I'm gonna trade kicks with Marlon Moraes, like that's a bad. Like I think he doesn't have anywhere near the power as Moraes in his kicks or his punches. But I actually like Sandhagen here by decision. But I think early on it's going to be really really hairy for him.
I'm going Marlon Moraes by first round stoppage. I think he goes out there, blitzes him, and puts this man away, and gets his rightful title shot next. Because I think the winner of this is definitely in title shot. Right? I mean, we were supposed to see Marlon versus Jan.
Yeah.
Last year, and that fight would have been awesome. Yeah, I got Marlon by first round stoppage. I think he blitzes
So
Sandhagen.
I'm going to take, of course, I'm going to take the opposite. I'm going to take Sandhagen by decision here, just because I think Moraes will slow down. Even though he does have all this like kind of championship experience, he does slow down. But
He does.
a first round stoppage in basically any Marlon Moraes isn't that out of the question, because he had those two. I'm looking at his record now. Remember, he had those
He stiffed
Aljamain
Aljo
Sterling
and then Jimmy
and
Rivera, right?
like back to back with
Yeah.
like, and he was just like, oh my god, this guy
A
is
Sun
so
Sao he
vicious.
put
And
out.
then the Sun Sao in the first round. And if you remember correctly, that very beginning of his last fight against Aldo, the very first strike he throws is that fucking left switch kick that just lands on Aldo's
Yeah.
skull. So like,
Well, dude,
obviously,
he had Cejudo in a world of trouble too. But
yeah,
to your point, he started to fade, and Cejudo took over, and
if
eventually, yeah,
he's gonna have a huge speed advantage early against Sandhagen, like
yeah,
a huge advantage. But I mean, Sandhagen's like young, only has 14 pro fights, which the lack of experience there means he doesn't have a ton of miles on him. But I think everybody gets shocked by how fast Marlon Moraes is in the
yeah.
first 5 minutes.
I mean, dude, I think this fight is flying way under the radar.
Yeah.
This is an excellent fight. I think it's. I would venture to say in this run on Fight Island, this is one of the best fights they have on for these cards coming up. I would say it's probably I don't have the list up, but top five. You obviously could be Gaethje, Adesanya, Costa, but outside of those, man, I think this one is right up there, dude. I am so excited for this.
Yeah, for sure. It's definitely flying under the radar. I mean, Sandhagen's not a huge star, and neither is Moraes, but hardcore fans, people in the know, like for sure,
Yeah.
it's one you got to see.
Oh yeah. I also like the co-main event a lot as well. Edson Barboza making his second fight at featherweight. Um, I was pretty critical of him dropping down to featherweight in the first place because if you looked at Edson Barboza at lightweight, it was like, how the hell is he going to get 10 more pounds off of that body? But he did. I thought he looked really good against Dan Ige. I thought he won that fight. Obviously, the decision did not go his way. He's on a 3-fight losing streak. Taking on Marquand Americani, who's always in fun fights. I really like this one a lot.
Yeah, I like it too. I think this is a good test for Barboza at this point in his career, because I think he should get past a guy like Makwan Amirkhani, who is basically does have improving striking, but he's basically like a wrestler submission guy. Which, yeah, guys in the past have been able to pressure Barboza, but Amirkhani like really slows down in his fights. And it's hard for me to see him just easily taking Barboza down. But if Amirkhani beats Barboza, that tells us, I think, more about Barboza than Amirkhani. That tells us that Barboza is basically at the very end of his career.
Yeah, yeah,
But I think it's going to be fun, especially because Amirkhani is super aggressive early. So um, we might see maybe one of those like trademark Barboza flying knees, something like that. I wouldn't be surprised at all.
yeah. I would guess Barboza finishes him late, but yeah, I think that first round, second round is going to be super high paced and crazy.
I also like
Um,
just Amirkhani's personality, the
yeah, I
Mr.
do too.
Finland, his
Yeah,
like Tapology picture, right? Or his
yeah, it's
Sherdog
cool.
picture is him with like women and shit. Like,
Yeah, I like it.
yeah.
I also like Ben Rothwell. Anytime he fights, I think he's fun. He does that creepy laugh and on the camera afterwards, taking on Marcin Tybura. I haven't really heard about Marcin Tybura for a while. Remember Tybura went through that stretch where he was like the guy that was fighting like all the top contenders, right? He was
Yeah.
almost like the guy like he never really beat any of the top contenders, but he was kind of like the guy that would headline an event against a top contender and usually get beat. But
I mean, to your point, what I most remember Marcin Tybura from is Derek Lewis consistently like shaking him off his back. What did
yeah,
they call it? What did they call it? His coach called it like do the I can't remember the move to like make him just slide off his back. That's basically what I remember Marcin Tybura
shimmy or
from.
something like that.
Yeah, Derek Lewis just get tripoding up and shaking his ass to make Marcin Tybura fall off.
That'll be a fun one. Looking down at the rest of this card, I'm excited to see Yusuf Zalal back in. He had a
Yes.
really, really impressive debut not too long ago.
Impa Kasangane is on this card
Yeah.
again.
Yep.
Not again. He's fighting again, which is
Again,
exciting.
yeah. Giga Chiakadze's on this card. He's fun. A lot of fun fights on this card, man. I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, and I don't know if we talked about this, but going back to Fight Island, I think we're seeing tighter like bubble scenario, so fewer and fewer and fewer, hopefully, fights falling out due to COVID.
Yeah, I agree, man. They got it pretty. Seems like they got it pretty buttoned up. So
Yeah.
we'll see. We'll see. And again, it all leads to the end of the month with Gaethje and Khabib. Sit tight because there's some big fights coming. But yeah, I mean, if you look at the card this past weekend, I thought it was fun. It didn't have a lot of name value. Same with this card. These cards usually produce because these guys are all hungry, trying to make a name for themselves, trying to get fights. And we've talked about this before, man. I think a lot of these guys are thriving during COVID because they're going out there, they're putting on super impressive performances, and they're getting fight after fight after fight. I mean, look at Impa, right? This is his third fight or fourth fight in what just a couple months.
Yeah.
And he's going out there and doing big things. So yeah, tune into this card. It's going to be great, headlined by an awesome bantamweight fight.
For sure, 100%.
I don't think we missed anything, man. Like I said, I wrote down a bunch of stuff before this to try to make sure I didn't miss anything. There was a lot of stuff happening, on social media.
You know what we should touch on real quick? There's the Bellator card this weekend. MVP is fighting.
Oh, yeah.
Czech Congo and Tim Johnson. Melvin Manhoef is on this card. Holy shit. There's not a ton of other names, but Mads Burnell, UFC veteran. But MVP, I mean, we talk about MVP. MVP fighting a guy making his Bellator debut. I believe a Cage Warriors champion, but still fighting a guy making his Bellator debut.
I mean, how long ago was that Douglas Lima fight? You know what I'm saying?
How can you go from Douglas Lima, one of the best welterweights in the fucking world, to guys, that are Cage Warriors champions, and that's it? No disrespect to Ross Houston, but come on.
I don't know. Yeah, and it's like, how old is MVP now? He's got to be like,
he's in his 30s,
right? So it's like he's not getting any younger.
He's 33,
right? So yeah, he wins this fight against Ross Houston. Like, then are we going to see him against the top, or is he going to go back to fighting the next guy? It's I don't know. It's frustrating.
I want to see him fight like Amasov or somebody, one of those like unknown, just savages.
Horshkov, Amasov, any of these guys, man. Just fight him.
Yeah.
Hell. So Bellator's on, and again, it's on CBS. Oh yeah, this is the card from France, right? The first like big card from France because now they are legal, right?
Yeah, that's 100% right. This is big news.
It is
totally legal MMA. I guess I'm surprised they didn't put Czech Congo in the main event. He's
MVP is the main event. I thought Czech Congo was.
On Tapology, it has Czech Congo listed as the co-main event against Timothy Johnson, which is they got to put that in the main event. In France, Czech Congo against a big old like mustached American guy.
I would imagine it would be the main event, but yeah, that's weird if it's not because Czech Congo represents France.
Yeah, for sure. I don't know.
Czech Congo's still doing it big. That guy's like 50 years old now, isn't he?
I mean,
right?
And he was
he's got to be up there.
His record is 30-10-2. The Darkness is listed as he's 45 years old. Yeah, he is.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, if you look at his face though, maybe not up close, but at least in photos, he looks like he's like 31. He's like the ageless wonder.
Yeah, he aged really well. I don't know. We'll see. So yeah, Bellator this weekend, UFC this weekend. Tune in, watch them. Bellator now on CBS Sports. I think that's an awesome move for them, and I'm excited to see it. First card from France too.
Yeah.
Oui. I think that's it, man. I don't got anything else.
Yeah, that's it for me.
Guys, again, if you're listening to this, if you're watching it, please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Try to make this thing big. Again, we got a lot of interesting stuff that we're going to be doing soon. We're still on SoundCloud. We are still on iTunes. Follow us all over. Follow us on Twitter. We always appreciate the support. Until next week, enjoy the fights, and we'll talk to you all soon.
escape, can you step to this? Face the pain, no escape, can you step to this? Face the pain.